am I in frame? I don't know. Hello everybody, it is me, Viktor, and it's time for Lazy Video Day! Woo! And I thought I would do something a wee bit different. So, I get asked quite often by people, and by people I don't mean people who watch my videos, I pretty much only mean people who see me in real life and know me in real life. Viktor, how many hats do you have? And that's a very good question. I have many hats. Hats are my business arena. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my hats. And we're going to start at the top. So this is apparently called a Checkered Hat. And I got this at like a steampunk stall. I can't remember how old I was. I think I was 17 or 16 when I got this hat. And it's a pretty nifty hat. And it's definitely one of my favorites. It's very heavy. Like if you shake your head like this, man, there's a lot of dynamic forces going on. This is also really dusty because I haven't really touched it in quite a long time. But this is the hat that started it all. I thought this thing was so sick that I just had to have it. And I paid a substantial amount of money that a 17-year-old would not have at the time. This was the second hat. So for a long time, these were the only two hats I owned. And they were a year apart, because they were both expensive hats. But this is my fez. And most people who know me pretty much say that the fez is their favorite. And understandably so. Fezzes are cool. But that's my fez. It's red. It has a little tassel. And it was made by a lady named Tess. It says on the inside of the hat, dressed by Tess, which you probably can't see. And I've gotten quite a few hats from her actually, or rather just her store. And she was sort of kind of a friend of mine. We used to hang out, play video games. Pretty cool. I later went back to the steampunk place one of the following years. Same place, exact same place, and I went wearing a hat because it was at a convention, and I went back wearing the hat and I purchased my first plague mask. Not really a hat, but I mean, this thing was pretty sick and I had wanted it for a while. And they've stamped who it's made by on the inside, but you know when you get a stamp and you do it the first time and it doesn't come out right, so you try and do it again over the exact same spot, but it's not quite on the exact same spot, and it's pretty much irredeemable, but you're just like, whatever, that'll do. I know what it says and I can kind of read it, but then I get it and I don't know what it's supposed to say, so I just look at it and I'm just like, made by Sean Generation. Oh, made by Steam Generation. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the dealio with that. Tried and true favorite. Well, this is probably one of the next hats I got. This is sort of when I was getting really into the hat phase, and this is more of an everyday wear hat than some of the more exuberant ones I have on the list. But this is kind of just like a Greek sailor's hat, and supposed to look like Steamboat Terry or some shit like that. And that's the dealio with this. So I sort of was really getting into hats. And this is a piece of shit, like, cheapo thing. Yeah, it's pretty good, right? Got it from the same place. It wasn't made by Tez, but I got it from the same store Tez works at, who did my fez. So that's that one. And that's a pretty cool hat. But then I also decided that I have a brush, but I think it's in my car. And some of these hats really need a good brush. And good word of thumb is that you should always brush your hats in the same direction. I think they advise counterclockwise, but I'm doing it with my hand and I'm doing it clockwise right now. But this is my top hat, and this is a pretty sweet hat. Fun fact about top hats, most of them don't fit. If you get a top hat, it generally won't fit. And so you have to get little foam in the padding, which just comes out, and then you put it back in. But I remember when I first got this top hat, I wore it pretty much everywhere. And sometimes I wear quite a substantial number of these weird and wacky hats out. Top hat is definitely no exception. Normally if I go to conventions now, I used to wear Shako plague mask. Now I actually wear plague mask top hat. I don't really have any kind of hood or like some big, like wide brim hat like the TF2 Grim Hattie or whatever. Did play a lot of TF2 by the way. Did not have a substantial number of hats in TF2. I suppose we'll go to the Viktor hats next, because this is sort of where everything begins. So, some of you may know, I have a character that I go by on YouTube called Viktor Pradley, and he is Angry Russian Man Make Big Explosions. And for those of you who've been following me since the beginnings, from my many prior channels and ones that I stopped uploading to and or deleted or just like vanished into obscurity, this was the Viktor hat, and you can see this thing is pretty knackered. It's been through a lot, and I've been wearing this for quite a number of years. It's just a cheapo thing you buy, that you can buy like on eBay or Amazon or whatever, and it gets delivered. I'm pretty sure it is actually from Russia, and this is the OG Viktor Yushanka. They're called Yushankas, by the way, and I would wear this hat out pretty much all the time, but I eventually upgraded and I got a new one. Now, whoopsie, that's no good. Now, one thing you'll notice about this hat is that it ties at the top. Now, I've actually put sticky tape on these to try and like keep it together, because like these strings were starting to fall apart quite a bit, and I realistically don't wear this hat that often anymore, but I did upgrade. I've got a new one now, and this is sort of my everyday Yushanka. So this actually has a little bit of elastic and a button on the top of it. So it hooks in like that, and it has restored its shape. It's kept its shape, unlike this one, which actually has a pretty funny story behind it. And I much prefer the color. The front of it buttons. So this is weird. Like the front of it can button down like this, but I have no idea why. What's the point of this? I don't understand, but there's a funny quirk of the hat. And you have to be careful unbuttoning this as well, because if you just pull it like that all the time, you can rip the stitching in between the fur and the inner material, and then you've got a problem. So that did happen to me. So I had to get this hat sewn back up. Funny story, while I remember, about the OG Viktor hat. So I lost this. I've lost this one before as well. It turns out I was just like behind some shit at work. So this hat, like, hilarious thing about this hat, I lost this hat. And I had no idea where it was. Absolutely no clue. And it was gone for like weeks and weeks. Now, as you know, I used to visit Jason quite a lot, because Jason moved to Melbourne, and before he was in Melbourne, he was sort of kind of in a different state. It would take me a lot. I'd have to go out and visit him. It was quite the arduous task going to see old mate Jason. When he moved to Melbourne, we were seeing each other all the time, man. It was like the hip and crazed new thing. And I still see him pretty often. Obviously not right now, because, you know, we're supposed to be at home. But apparently, when I went to Jason's house one day and I left, I had jumped back in my car, and the top of my hat mustn't have been sitting on my head properly, because I didn't even notice when I jumped in my car, the top of my car like took the hat off, fell on the ground, left it in the curb, because I park on the street when I go to Jason's, and I drove off. And it stayed there for a while, and it got wet and it got disgusting. And Jason saw this hat in the curb, but didn't know what it was, but he thought maybe it was Viktor's hat, so he picked it up and plopped it in front of his garage. Didn't message me to say, hey, have you lost your hat? didn't think, oh, if that's Victor's hat, maybe I should like actually properly have a look at it. It's a little bit gross, but maybe I should, you know, see if I can get it cleaned up or something. None of that, just dropped it in front of the garage. And then I came back one time with it still there, and I looked at it, and I said, what the fuck is that? And Jason goes, I don't know, but it might be your hat. And I'm like, bro, I fucking lost my hat. I can't find it anywhere. Because sometimes when you do the Victor shows, maybe you don't want to wear the grey hat. You might want to wear the black hat. Sometimes, you know, black look better than grey, am I right? I prefer the material of this one substantially to this one. And I find this to be a little bit more subtle than this one. And I like the subtlety more. This is a lot more buffier and full on. But sometimes the black looks better. You want to wear the black. And I was fucked, and I thought, my hat's screwed. I'm never going to wear this hat again. But he did put it through the wash, and like it's clean now, and it's still wearable, but it'll never be the same. And it's purely because of like these flaps sit so far back now, because it's so deformed. It barely holds its shape. If I tighten these strings, I can get it sort of kind of close, but the hat's just never been the same. It looks completely mangled. I mean, you compare it to this one, and you can tell this looks a hell of a lot more neat than this one does. I did have a white Ushanka, but I bought that to give to someone else. That wasn't my hat. So white Ushanka, if you've ever seen a photo of me in a black Ushanka and a little Asian man in a white Ushanka, that's my friend Kenny. That's not his hat, that was for someone else, but if you ever come across that picture, that is not my hat. I bought that for someone else. This grey one, I had a friend who went to Russia, and he thought it would be a great idea to bring me back a Russian hat, which is very endearing, despite the fact I already have several. He also, when he went on his holiday, brought me back this moose hat, which is just hilarious. Moose hat, everybody. Who doesn't love a moose hat? Some other great classics. I only bought this for the Christmas video that I did last year, a couple years ago. Never had it for any other specific purpose. Now, some others. Alright, we probably should get to the tricorn. So this hat is in desperate need of a brush, really badly. But this hat is made by Tez, who did my fez. Now, I got Tez to specifically make this hat for me. Tez also sold me this hat, but she didn't make that. But she made this, and I wanted something quite subtle. I didn't want any flares or feathers or anything like that. And I always wanted a tricorn. It was like the one thing I needed to like really make my collection feel whole. Because I love all these hats. Especially some of these more weird and wacky ones, but I thought there's one weird and wacky hat that I just don't have, and that's a tricorn hat. And the funny thing, I get quite aggravated when people call it a pirate hat. I don't like when people call it a fucking pirate hat, because I'm not a pirate. Although I would totally love to be a pirate if I was born in that century. But I wanted the sort of navy blue, and my sort of inspiration for the colour and the look of the hat was actually Haytham Kenway from Assassin's Creed 3, which probably sounds super lame, but I was quite young when that game came out, and I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I enjoyed that character quite a lot, so I based this hat quite specifically off him. Now, he's not really a pirate, is he? And then I also had this character who was from a D&D game called Captain Frederick, and Captain Frederick was a pirate hunter. I'm not a pirate, I hunt pirates. And that was his whole dealio. And it was a funny evolution of where the voice came from and some of the weird and wacky and quirky things, but it was a fun character. And the hat really completes the look, but I really just wanted it for the collection. This is definitely one of my favorite hats, and I no joke, I walked into a pub to hand in a resume wearing this hat. They did get back to me eventually. It took them a few months, but they did eventually get back to me, and they did offer me a job, but I had to turn it down because I had another job that I'm still working at now, and I'm still good friends with the man who hired me, I walked into that job wearing this hat to hand in my resume. Now, when I walked in with the tricorn, I was so embarrassed I took it off because I didn't realize I was wearing it when I walked in. I had to sort of like hold it and hope they didn't notice. I walked in with this thing on thinking it was no big deal. And why would you? I mean, I'm in Australia. It's an Australian hat. It's just like, it's whatever, man. Like, who cares? Turns out the chick who saw me goes into the back room, tells the man who would become my boss, there is a cowboy standing in our restaurant asking for a job. I had that job the next day. I'm still working there now. I probably shouldn't be wearing this vest in this video, but it is a bit late. But that's yeah. Yeah, that's this hat. Did also get this hat. Same place I got the fez, same place I got the tricorn, same place I got the top hat. They all came from the same store, but the fez and the tricorn were made by the same person, whereas these two, I believe, are ordered in, because this is an Akubra line of hat. Heritage collection. It's made in Australia. It's real leather, which my girlfriend doesn't like very much. But it's a sick hat. This is absolutely one of my favorites, and it ties together the character of Action Jackson. Action Jackson is a sheriff of a Wild West town who's all about getting the job done. That's all he cares about. He's just working hard. He sleeps 30 minutes a night. He gets back up, he goes back to work, and he doesn't visit his family for a period of 3 months at a time because he's too busy working, and he sleeps at work. I have another Akubra. This is not nearly worth the same amount as this one is, and this one has no chance of ever fitting my head. No way, Jose. This was given to me by a friend as a gift. It was once his father's, and this was really badly misshapen. I took this hat to Tez, and Tez actually fixed this hat up for me and put the shape of it back together. So really appreciate that, friendo. Wasn't too pricey either. Absolute gem. So this is purely for the collection. This one is not for wearing, but it's nice to have. It's from the Greg Norman Great White collection. I can't even remember what Greg Norman did. Golfer or something? Really can't remember. There are so many more hats to go through. It is insane how many more hats there are to go through. So, I got this hat in Vietnam, and this is another one of my everyday wear hats, because it's just like a cap, it's just like a green cap. Now this hat actually had sort of the red and blue star from, you know, when Vietnam was divided into like North and South, and you know, it had the red on one side, the blue on the other, right? So that was a badge that was on the front of this hat. And now you buy this at gift shops all over Vietnam. It's freaking everywhere. And I wanted this one, and I bought this one, and I walked around Vietnam with that star on. And I remember I asked the tour guide at one point. I said, are people going to have a problem with me walking around like this? And he goes, oh, no one's going to care. But then I come back here, and they're like, oh my God, you wore that over there? You're insane. What's the matter with you? You probably offended so many people. But I don't know, man, the Vietnamese tour guide said I was fine. Okay. This is also not a hat, but I bought these with the shaker hat. Or I bought these one year and I got the shaker hat the next year and the mask the next year. These are cool. These just go on your arm. And I have worn these in a couple videos, a couple funny videos. There's a video of me eating a watermelon. And that's just the whole video of me eating a watermelon. I don't know where to find that on YouTube at the moment. On one of my 15 channels that I gave up on. I believe I'm wearing these. And that's a cool hat. Jay-Z bought me the weed hat. That's it. That's the story behind that one. Jay-Z also bought me one of these Bintang Bali hats when he went to Bali. And I was wearing this a little bit in summer. And I feel like the way you have to wear this is, without a doubt, Shawn Michaels style. I just think that's the only way you're allowed to wear the hat. I think it's just got to look dumb otherwise, right? Sort of like rapid fire mode now. This is a pretty funny hat. It's another one of the joke hats. This is my Yoshi hat. It's Yoshi. My cousin got me this hat from a market. She sent me a text and said, "Do you want?" And I sent back, "Yes." Now I have a Yoshi hat. And it's a fine addition to the collection. Jason had this mask made up for me from like an Etsy store. This thing is freaking, it's really big on my face, and I don't see a reality where I ever wear this out in public, but I sort of like it being a part of the collection alongside the plague mask. And I have another mask. It just sort of goes over the eyes and it's got a really long nose. I don't know where that is right now. I think that's in the other shelf of hats in my bedroom. I'm not joking, I have another shelf full of hats in my bedroom. This is only where I put the quote-unquote good hats, or the hats that like sort of mean something. With the exception of like these hanging off the side, I got this hat in Vietnam. It's only there to complete the collection. The sombrero is only there to complete the collection. This cowboy hat I've had since I was a child, for the sake of a costume, because I wanted to dress up as like Doc Holliday or some shit for like a Wild West party, and I've had that hat for years. I don't really like that hat, but I still have that hat. Doesn't really deserve a place on the shelf. None of these things on hanging off the side really deserve a place, but here they are anyway. Plague mask absolutely deserves a space, so do not be mistaken. I have a turban, and this was from my parents actually. When my parents went to Turkey, they brought me back a turban, and the idea would be that you put this on your head, and this is the bit that holds it in place. I'm not going to put it on now, but you know, that's the point there. I remember at my old job, I took this to work, and there was a Turkish man who did our security, and I brought this in, and I asked him how to put it on. Or, I can't remember what he was, but he showed me how to tie it. Sam, really nice guy. Was a really good friend of mine when I worked there. And I guess, other than this Star Wars one, Jay-Z also bought me this one. He bought me this, he bought me the Bali hat, and he bought me the weed hat. The same guy who got me the moose hat and this Yushanka. But yeah, anything that is a cool and unique hat deserves a place on the shelf, and I believe because this thing just looks so cool, it definitely deserves a place on the shelf. Because it's unique. I don't have anything else that's quite like that hat. And like most of these hats, if they have a story, if they're a special gift of some kind, if they complete the collection, if I have room for it on this shelf, this is where the things I want to display go. And I have a lot of things in this room that are here purely for the purpose of display, things that I want to look at. I have all kinds of posters and shit all around the room. I've got a shelf just to my right here that you can't see that is full of One Piece manga and a really, really nice buggy statue that I may show off in another video. And who could forget a Stormtrooper helmet? You know who likes Stormtrooper helmets other than myself? Children really love Stormtrooper helmets. I have nephews that come into this house from time to time, and this thing does not stay where I want it to be. There's a lot of things in this room. Kids don't sort of understand that, and you know, we didn't when we were kids either, right? That if something's on display, it's not really to be played with. It's on display. It's meant to be looked at and appreciated. And that's what this hat is. You can wear this hat, this helmet. It is tremendously uncomfortable to wear. You can barely see through the thing. It's got a voice changer, and I've got batteries in it, but like, come on man, the voice changer doesn't work. It's a joke. So that's that hat. And that pretty much is the almighty hat collection. Like I said, I do have an entire other shelf in the other room full of hats, and there are some pretty weird and wacky hats in there, but they're not display hats. They're not the kind of things I want to show off. They belong on a shelf only because I want to be able to say I have 2 shelves packed to the brim with hats. That's my hat video. Go fuck yourself.